First of all, thank you for taking the time to listen today. It's Friday afternoon. I put this webinar at this time for a very good reason. There's a couple of people asking in chat, as there always is, not sure how to get audio and video. I'm just going to respond to them in text. And I can't type and talk at the same time. My name is Harry. I work for a company called CiC. You probably all know the company already. That's why you're here. But if not, we're an employee assistance program that supports lots of people across the world for their psychological, but also some practical support that we give as well. Please do use the chat function as much as you want throughout this session. It's there for you to be able to talk to each other, but also to talk to me. I'll be keeping an eye on it the whole time. You can send questions to me privately in chat, and that way only I will see it. And when I do respond to private questions, I won't say your name or anything that will identify you, so you can ask a bit more private and personal things. Talking of private and personal things, this webinar is for you. This is not about your career, it's not about your productivity at work. This is just about you and your well-being. So please, I do invite you, switch your phones on to Do Not Disturb. That reminds me, I'm going to do that myself. Switch your phones on to Do Not Disturb, turn your emails off, close things down, and really just take the time to pick up some tools and tips for yourself and your well-being. And as I say, let me know in the chat if you've got any questions as we go along. I've put together some slides, but it's much more interesting for me to answer your questions as they come through. Without further ado, let's get started. We're in winter. We are dealing with grayer skies, colder days and longer nights. And that does make staying positive and having a good mental well-being more difficult. We tend to spend less time outside. We're missing out on lots of the social aspects of what's going on, and also things that worked for us during spring or summer may or may not feel possible. All those lovely things that we did outside, we might not feel like we can do so much. A couple of people in the chat asking if this session is being recorded. I'm going to record this first part and then we'll turn off the recording Q&A at the end. And look, if you're feeling lonely, really do remember for yourself, feeling lonely in these circumstances is totally normal. We as human beings, as animals, as members of the animal kingdom, we require all sorts of different contacts, some of that being social contact, some of that being physical contact, missing a hug from our loved ones or even just our friends. Many of us will just be missing the buzz of being in a big city or being in an office. And so we're getting less of that contact that we really, really rely on. So feeling lonely at the moment would be really, really important. Now, good tools to combat this isolation, this winter isolation we might be finding ourselves in. Schedule calls with friends and family. Get them in your diary. It's really hard to do those things on a whim. I know when I get to the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is start trying to talk to more people. I spend most of my day talking anyway, but it really is important to get those things scheduled in the diary so they're much more difficult to avoid. I look at it a bit like I look at exercising. I will take the tiniest little excuse not to exercise. I will also take the tiniest little excuse not to do those things that I know work so well to look after me. So make a plan for the Christmas period with things to look forward to. Now, even if you're not celebrating Christmas, even if you're not spending lots of time with friends and family as you normally would, we still need some nice things to look forward to and some things to plan. A lot of the world does shut down a little bit more around this time. So even if you're not someone that celebrates Christmas, take advantage of the slowdown. Do some things to look after yourself. And get into really good habits of self-care now. Yes, we're in winter, but spring is the next season, and it's not that far around the corner. We've got a few months to go. So start looking after yourself now so that you can enjoy yourself a bit more in spring. And go outside during the day. My curtains are closed. So this is kind of useless, but I know it's getting dark here, and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. If I hadn't already been outside today, I might be starting to feel that. I might be starting to feel that in my mental health and my well-being. I've had a couple of questions here. Harry, one question I had, I may be misremembering, but is an aspect of CiC phone line on offer to our families? It'd be good to pass that on. It depends on your individual contract. We've got lots of people from lots of organisations here, so I can't confirm that, but just ring up ring up, tell us who you work for. My colleagues on the advice line will be able to confirm. Someone else saying privately, could you share tips for dealing with family who are not taking COVID precautions we're comfortable with, but who we're still supposed to spend time with over the holidays? My dad, in his 70s, is not taking recommended precautions and won't listen to his family asking him to wear a mask. This is a really tough one. I was actually speaking to a colleague of mine about this earlier. Being the one in your family that stands up following the rules can be really, really hard at the moment. I think taking some time to tell the person, I'm not trying to teach you anything, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but here are the reasons I'm following the guidelines, here are the reasons I'm following the rules. I'm asking you to do the same so that I can enjoy my time with you. And I think that that's a really nice way of going about it. A lot of my responses to things come from my psychotherapeutic background, but we call that idea sharing the concern with someone. If my father's doing one thing over here and I'm over here doing something else, if I'm not sharing the concern I have with him, we're never going to be able to break down that barrier. So if I can share it with him, we've got much more of a chance of having a conversation about it. And look, there are a few things that we can get stuck in that don't help our mood. We can be worrying about things we can't control at the moment. We call that catastrophizing sometimes. We're trying to sort everything out. We're trying to fix all these problems. Rumination. I know I get stuck in this a lot of times, looking at the immediate past and thinking, oh, what if I'd taken this choice over this choice? Can I go back and do it all over again? Media and social media use and the speculation we find on there can be really unhealthy for us. We have to make sure that we are only tuning into the media and social media to help our mood or to work with our mood. Many of us get forced into unhealthy comparisons at a time like this, either comparing the country you're in to how other countries are doing against the virus. I could be comparing my financial situation to others, my familial situation to others. Those comparisons aren't useful to us. What is useful to us is to look at our own experience, look at the positives we can find and the negatives that we can try and mitigate. Self-neglect. It's one of the biggest things we're seeing at the moment, people driving into a kind of bad isolation and not looking after themselves. The reason I said at the start of this presentation was, turn your phones on to do not disturb, give yourself some time on a Friday afternoon, because I've come across so few people that are finding time to do that, finding time for themselves. I think it's really important that we get this right. And that comes with this withdrawing from social contact as well. If I'm not socializing with people, why do I stop looking after myself? That's because we have these unhelpful patterns as human beings. A lot of us grow up, how best to put this? I guess we grow up in a culture where I look after myself for the sake of other people. We can end up in caring professions or looking after other people or trying to keep up with the Joneses. I have a good job so that I can have a nice car just so that my neighbours can see it. We do kind of end up in these weird little mind tricks sometimes. So that can be really unhelpful. Losing our independence really doesn't help our mood, and that's tough at the moment. Some of us can just kind of lay down and take the rules, but some of us have to find it really difficult and fight against them, and that can be really hard for us. Of course, the excess that we might find ourselves. We've seen a huge increase in alcohol use, gambling use over the last few months as well. And of course, burnout. If I've got bad boundaries, if I'm not looking after my working life and separating it from my home life, I can end up with these really poor boundaries that just start to affect me over time. A couple of questions here. Hi, Harry. I think it's spouse and dependent children. Yeah, most of our contracts will cover your spouse and any dependent children living at home. They have to be 16 or over to access our counselling service. Oh, this is someone I spoke to recently. Hi, nice to see you. Someone else privately has said, I've noticed my healthy diet has become high carbs and sugar. How do I get myself out of this funk? It's never been a problem until the pandemic. So our body starts to crave high carbs and sugar. And we're going to look a little bit at some kind of positive well-being techniques towards the end. But really, the reason behind it is because we're so stressed, we're actually burning through a huge amount of energy. Our body's going into this fight or flight mode all the time. So we do crave carbs and sugar. And of course, then the more we give it, the more energy we have to spend on that stress. So trying to look at the times that you eat, I think, is a good start for that. And then try to break it down into healthier bites rather than going for the high carbs and high sugar. Someone said here, how do you build what do you do to build new connections in this period and find a social life? I found great life in online networking events. I know they start off as a professional thing, but have a look at the field that you're in. There's always been networking events in person. Loads of those have moved online, and they're doing some great innovative things to put people into little breakout rooms and spend some time together. That's a good place to start. Someone said, disappointed because I'm really looking forward to this, but can't get audio. If no audio, leave, then rejoin. Sorry, coming up against my limitations of talking and typing again. Someone's just said to me privately, your test came through. Any tips for young people like me who are suffering with climate anxiety? And this is another one that can really start to affect our mood as well. Anxiety around those big changes going on in the world that we have some responsibility for, but don't have a huge amount of control over. And I think sometimes it's a little bit about trying to bring our worldview a little closer to home, trying to do all we can to protect ourselves and look after the planet. It is really hard when we're feeling that anxiety. I really recommend finding other people that are similarly suffering with climate anxiety. There's some really good online groups out there, because discussing it with other people can make you feel a bit more part of the change or the difference that's needed. Someone's given some good advice for new connections, loads of Facebook groups and stuff like that, which is brilliant. Cool. Sorry to the people that can't hear me, but I can't really help at the moment. The pandemic and our mood. So I shared this in the last presentation I gave, but I really liked the idea of it. This explains, for me anyway, how easy it is to slip into this self-imposed unhealthy isolation. Because our poor mental health or our poor physical health starts to take away our energy, we need rest, like any ill health. If you've got the flu, if you've got a broken leg, you need to rest. You need to allow your body to repair and get better. Well, the same goes for our mental health. We need to rest our minds to heal. But what we're living through at the moment is a pandemic where we're living at home, we're bored, we're running out of things to do. The only entertainment we've got is based on computers for a lot of us, be they TVs or computer game consoles or our laptop. And actually that doesn't give our brain any rest. It's information overload the whole time. So we can much more easily fall into exhaustion. And of course, then when we're exhausted, we're frustrated. Remember your parents telling you this when you were a toddler? You're tired, you need to have a nap. That doesn't change when you're an adult. We just stop napping so much. So when we're exhausted, we can get that same frustration, and we can turn that frustration inwards. We can start looking at our failure, pointing at why we're not doing so well, and that starts to lead to anxiety and depression, even with none of the other factors that normally cause it. So I want you to think really carefully now, not what are the things you're doing to relax, but what is really restful for you. Try and imagine in your mind the most restful time you've had in the past, let's say 5 years. Was it a holiday that you took? Was it some time you spent with friends or family and you just felt really at peace? That's what I mean by rest. When your mind, body and soul really can kind of switch off and feel comfortable and not under threat anymore. I think it's really, really important that we play into our strengths here. We know what's restful for us, most of us. Let's try and find time to do it. Somebody's saying here, I find in January, February, March, I begin to feel a low anyway. Absolutely, there are some seasonal changes that do change our mood. Don't fight that. It's natural. Winter is a period of rest and recharge and hibernation. This is quite natural that we're a bit locked down and spend more time at home. Just make sure you're not missing out on the positives as well. How do you switch off your mind, someone says, when it's full of to-dos? Meditation doesn't help me that much. Meditation's good, but it's not for everyone. If my mind is full of to-dos, I think sometimes having that list in front of me, so physically writing it down, is really important. Often then I cross off 2 or 3 anyway as soon as I get them out of my mind because I realize I'm not interested in them. And then start with whatever tasks you have energy for. So if you're looking at your list and you feel really energetic, pick a really energetic task. If you're feeling really low and really quiet, pick the simplest task on there, because then knocking that one over will give you self-confidence, which might boost your mood a little bit as well. A few people have managed to sort out their sound settings, which is brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone in the chat, for helping people out. Someone here said, I started drawing and found it very helpful as it helped me to switch off. Drawing's beautiful, something physical but slow and quiet. Someone here says, hi, Harry, how do we deal with the feeling like we're never doing enough or not working hard enough at work? My manager says I'm working fine, but I think they're just being polite. Okay, first of all, this is a really common feeling, particularly at the moment. We don't have that constant contact with our team and particularly our manager that usually makes us feel okay. Usually all I need is a smile from my manager as they walk past my desk in a day, and I know and I feel I'm okay. What I would listen to here is, your manager says you're working fine, but you think they're just being polite. What's changed? Why suddenly don't you believe or trust in your manager? If they're the person that could make you feel like you're doing all your work, why are they suddenly not? It might be something in the relationship, it might be something in the distance you're having, but this might be something that you can raise with them. Like, you've said that I'm doing work okay. I'd really like to hear the honest truth. I don't need you to be polite because I'm unsure of how well I'm doing at the moment. So I need to be certain about it. And maybe they can help you with that certainty. And you've added here, this feeling has got worse as I haven't seen my team or manager in person for months. And that's exactly the same for many of us. So having those conversations is really, really important. Otherwise, we can slip into these negative mindsets like depression. Isolation and loneliness, the situation many of us are in at the moment, fuels depression. Difficult relationships can be even more damaging than being alone and can send us even more depressed. Anxiety can lead to depression as we start to focus on our fears and inability to cope, and high stress levels make depression more likely. Those two things are really linked. So the higher stress levels we're under, the more likely we are to feel anxious because we're scared. We know we're going into a difficult situation on a daily basis. So those high stress levels increase anxiety. And then as we focus on our negatives and our failure, that leads to depression. And of course, the unhealthy coping strategies, those things I mentioned right at the top of the presentation, alcohol, other substances, gambling, things like that, they make our stress, anxiety, and depression even worse. So we have to watch out for this. And so let's look at the other side of things. What habits we can get in place that can fuel our happiness? Rest, I've said this already. First and foremost, we get cranky when we're tired, just like toddlers. So we need really good sleep. I've got some sleep tips at the end. If you've been to one of my presentations before, you'll have seen them before, but I'm going to repeat them. They haven't changed. They're the best tips out there. Health. Our physical health and mental health are linked. If we're not looking after the food and liquid that we take in, if we're not exercising properly, our physical health will start to deteriorate and our mental health will follow. Gratitude, reminders of what we're grateful for, is a really important way of getting through the day. I've heard a few people here talking about journaling and stuff like that, and that can really help with gratitude. Oh, and this is my favorite one. If you came to my last presentation, I said a little bit about this because I just started on a journey of looking at my attitude, and I'm a bit further into it now. The idea is that when you wake up in the morning, what is your attitude? What is the attitude that you take going into that first conversation you have? What about the second? How much in charge of the emotions and the mood of those conversations are you? Because I feel like I'm quite a lot in charge of these things. If I get up in a bad mood, I can have a conversation with any 5 or 6 of you and pass that bad mood on to you quite easily, further deepening my bad mood because I'm having all these negative conversations. So can I, when I get up in the morning, do something to improve my mood straight away, improve my attitude towards the day? Because lo and behold, if I see a negative long day stretching out ahead of me, guess what I'm going to have? A negative long day. I am kind of the creator of everything I do at the moment. We're all kind of stuck here working at home. So it's important that we work with that kind of attitude and how we start the day, and try and stick to doing the things that we do well and come easy to us, working with our aptitude, working with our talents. If your job doesn't allow you to do that, try and find time with your hobbies to do it. Some people here said, I've rediscovered reading. This has helped me to balance exercise levels with rest and relaxation. Beautiful. That's a great sentence. I might steal it. Contribution, helping other people helps us, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail, and this connection. So these 3 we're going to look at really closely: rest, contribution, and connection, because I've noted that those are the ones that we're missing out the most, and those are the ones that can pull us up out of kind of difficult period. I also shared this quote a couple of times. Because of the routines we follow, we often forget that life is an ongoing adventure. We need to remember we're created creative. I mean, looking around at just the few cameras I can see here, I can see books, I can see shelves, I can see people's clothes hanging up, I can see all sorts of stuff around us. Let's get involved in all the things around us, become a bit more creative, because we can invent new scenarios as frequently as they're needed. We often just forget that. We get up every day and we do the same things in this routine because it's comfortable, but we forget that we have this creativity within us. So first and foremost, we need to make the most of our time together at the moment. It has been massively minimized. I started this slide by saying we're spending less time with our friends and family at the moment. A colleague of mine who I run my slides past said some people are spending too much time with their friends and family. They're locked down with them. So I put it, and I changed it to we are spending strange time with our friends and family. We're not in control of the time we spend with our friends and family. It's either too much, too little, or just right. But whatever it is, we should be making the most of those contacts. Think of how you're spending this time. Remove distractions when you're with people you care about and people that you love. Put your phone away. Turn the TV off. Even just spend 10 minutes talking to someone rather than 2 hours just sitting with them, because it's really easy to miss the opportunity to connect with someone, even if we're together for hours or days. So think of quality time. I would much rather have 10 minutes quality time with any of you than 2 hours of just kind of milling about, not doing much. Yeah. Share your feelings with them and don't try and go through this alone. Sometimes someone said here, yeah, I've spent 24 hours a day since March working in my house with my husband. So maybe we need to go a little bit the other way sometimes as well and share a bit of honesty, saying, I'm pleased with spending enough time with you, but I do need to spend some time on my own as well. You know, try and get that understanding. If you're reaching a limit of how much you can handle with someone else, that's totally natural too. Sometimes we take these feelings that we have as signals that there's something bad going on or something worse going on. No, what these often are just signals that our body and our brain wants us to do something about it. So if 24 hours every day since March working in your house with your husband feels like a lot to you, then the first person you should share that with, if you feel comfortable enough, is your partner. Say, look, what can we do to make the most out of our time together, but also be able to spend some time apart as well? And look, spending time together doesn't have to be just sitting in front of each other like this very calm-looking kid talking. This looks like a childish picture because I stole it from a kid's book. It's about listening in class. But I just think I've never seen a picture of someone who really looks like they're listening to me. And every time I get to this slide, it makes me smile because I see his face. I think it's really important that we take this time really carefully. And the more value I give this time, the more valuable it becomes for me as well. Helen said, we go for a walk every weekend as a family, weather allowing. Over the course of the pandemic, we have walked further and further. It gives us exercise, fresh air, and appreciation of the countryside and time away from screens. So you're combining so many great things there, Helen. Time together with your family, quality time away from screens for all of you, exercise, and that spiritual connection to the world that we live in, that wider connection to the world that we're in and the environment. I've done a little bit of research over this period, and one of the things that most people responded to, saying that they really miss and they really find useful for their well-being, is spending time in nature. Why do we stop doing that just because it gets colder? We've all got clothes. We can all wrap up warm and go and still get that nice time in nature. And I think that's really important. Thanks for sharing that. That's a good one. Zabida said, I found something helpful is to share funny videos with my network. It makes everyone laugh and helps really to release stress. Yeah, absolutely. Sharing those kind of little bits. Laughter is a natural medicine to a stressful period. Absolutely. Alice says, me and my fiance haven't spent time together. We spent time around each other. What could you recommend to change this up? That's a really good point. Yes, we've been around each other, but we haven't really been together. I think coming up with activities, speaking to your partner and saying, look, I'd like to do some activities together. I know we've probably fallen into this routine because we feel like we've run out of things to do, but let's make finding things to do a bit of a task in itself as well. Doing some research together, looking for new things that you can do together, things that you can learn. I think that's really important. Thank you. Someone here says, do you have any tips for reducing headaches caused by being on a computer all the time? Find working from home and have less time away from screens and meetings all online too, getting a lot of migraines. First of all, you can spend some of these meetings away from your screen, as long as people aren't sharing slides like this. You can turn your camera off, turn your chair away from your laptop and just talk and listen. That can be a really useful one. I would start off, basically, my advice would be to reduce the time that you're spending in front of the screen. So breaks every couple of hours, even if it's just 10 minutes, spending some time outside in those breaks would be really helpful for your migraines too as well. Making sure that you get enough water, of course. So many questions. We'll come back to a few of those in a minute. If I miss your questions, please don't feel bad about asking it again. I don't mind at all. We'll come back to these at the end. I wanted to talk to you guys about learning and doing new things, because learning really improves our self-esteem. It keeps us connected and involved with ourselves, and it helps us adapt to change and find meaning in our lives. That's quite a lot. I really liked this picture because it really reminds me of the view I get outside my window. I've got a kind of another building of flats right opposite me, and I can just see people all day working at their computers. And look, consistent learning has been shown to prevent depression. And start small with achievable goals. It could just be, here's a book I want to read. I'm going to make sure I'm through it by the end of the month. Maybe even research something you've always been curious about but didn't have the time to spend on it. Any kind of reading, research, new information boosts our confidence and our self-esteem. Then the more confidence and self-esteem we have, the more we can learn and the easier we find it to turn our mind to new things. It gives us hope and purpose, and it fights this all terrible boredom that we're having, which has been harder than it sounds at the moment. Fighting boredom at the moment is really, really difficult. So starting yourself on a little program of this is really useful. Laura said, someone said something about a bath and a cup of tea, one of my favorite things to do as well. Yeah, you can do more than one thing while you're learning as well, more than one thing while you're reading a book. You can have a book in the bath while you're really relaxing and share those few things. You can go out for a walk, take something to learn with you and go and do it outside. Saw quite a lot of people doing that in spring and summer, far less people doing it at the moment. Don't let the cold keep you from being outside. And then finally, this real switching off. I've been talking about this for the last 3 or 4 years, and I think the pandemic has given us a way of seeing how devastating this can be to our well-being. Switching off has been really, really difficult for us during the pandemic. With remote working and social distancing, we've increased our dependence on technology. It is beautiful that the technology that we have at this moment has really stepped up to meet the challenge. But what it's also done is it's shouted a little bit louder than it should have, I think. It's taken a bit too much of our attention. It's changed not just how we work, but also how we live, how we socialize. And this has also started to impact on how we can rest and relax. So take a couple of minutes. Look at your diary now. Between now and, let's say, the middle of January, when can you choose to turn off for 2 days? And when I say turn off, I mean take your laptop, close it, put it away in a cupboard, and don't worry if it's charged up or not. Not be worrying about when you're going to get to check it again, because you know it's in your diary, it's in 2 days' time. But studies have shown that a 2-day disconnect can be really, really transformative to our well-being. We're not spotting other things to do. We're feeling bored because we're not allowing ourselves to stay in boredom long enough. Boredom's a state of mind that's actually quite beautiful. It means I'm open. It means I'm receptive to anything else that comes along. If I don't let myself stay in boredom, however, the first thing I do is pick up my phone and scroll through Instagram again, or pick up my laptop and do a couple more emails, then new stuff never gets a chance to happen. So it really has started to impact how we rest and relax and how we fight boredom. So when can you choose to turn off for 2 days? Even if you've been working all the way through the period, how will you protect your downtime? Schedule things to do away from access to technology. A person who said they go for a walk with their family on the weekends, because you cannot wait to be invited to be switched off. No one will invite you to do it. No device, even if they've got all these clever screen time warnings, they will not say to you, do you know what, take 2 days off. None of these devices are going to say that. You have to say it yourself. A couple of comments about this. I'm not bored at all. Work now seems an intrusion, and I resent having to do it, though I need the money. I would, strangely enough, call that a positive place to be in. You're not bored in your personal life, but it might be boring in your career. So it might be a good time to start researching other career paths that you can take, the next step, the next opportunity for you to feed that vital spark you've got in with you, by the sounds of it. Someone says here, social media influencers do 2-day disconnects quite a lot, and they highly recommend it to their viewers. That's fantastic. If it's something social media influencers are doing, I'm sure it's a good idea. If it helps them to disconnect, they're the ones that are most connected, I'd say. Thank you very much for that. Sue says, I think the trick is if you're going to start doing a hobby or something, it has to be something that interests you. Yes. And again, this is that unhelpful comparisons. People taking up hobbies because they think it's the cool thing to do, or it's the current fad of a hobby. Really pay attention to the things that you want to do, that you really enjoy. They're much more important to do. Someone said privately, sometimes I feel guilty when I try to switch off, as if there's a pressure to be productive all the time. How do you recommend dealing with this? Well, first of all, the fallacy that switching off is unproductive. I think we need to fight that completely. If I really wanted to, if it was the best thing for my well-being to close this laptop right now, about halfway through this presentation, say a gentle but hopefully polite goodbye to you all and just go and stand by that window, that's what I'd have to do. I'm not immediately being productive as I plan to be. My brain's calling for something else. In order to enable me to be as productive as possible, I need to have the other side. I mean, you probably learned this if you learned yin and yang, the opposites. We can't have productivity without having relaxation. We can't have happiness without the absence of happiness. Otherwise, happiness wouldn't feel good at all, right? Productivity wouldn't feel great if we didn't have downtime, and we need it. Particularly our brain. Our brain cannot concentrate for much more than 90 minutes solid, really, on a task. So if we're spending more time than that, we're actually not being productive. Our brain needs time and space to think. So I would start addressing the fallacy of being in front of a computer means I'm being productive, because it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. You have to think really carefully about the boundaries that stop you from switching off as well. I switched off while I was writing this presentation. I don't mind admitting I wrote some of it today. I've been quite pressed for time at the moment. But what I did have is I had time in my diary today where I could close my emails, turn my phones off and work on this. Really be productive and work on it. That's what's important, because if I try and write a presentation like this and my Outlook's still open and my phone's still on, I'll never get through it. Someone else will be demanding my attention all the time. So it's looking at actually what productivity is for you that I think is really important. I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but I think this productivity idea is really important because it is a fallacy that me being in front of my computer is me being productive. I worked a job before I got into the world of psychology and psychotherapy where I worked in a marketing and PR agency, and we learned this idea of perception. Being at your desk, looking like you're on the phone or on the computer, being busy all the time. I wasn't productive at all, but I was busy. And those are two very, very different things. Thank you for that question. It's a good point. I dug up my lawn and made a vegetable patch in March. I love eating my own produce and making compost. Brilliant. That sounds really good. Cook dishes you've never done before. Get the music on and have a dance while cooking. Perfect idea. A little bit of exercise and also away from screens and doing something physical with your hands. Emma says, I'm not very good at switching off. I think this will be my New Year's resolution to switch off an hour a day. So you've done something beautiful there, Emma. You've spotted something you'd like to be better at, and you've given yourself a small little target to achieve, a small achievable target, an hour a day. Beautiful. And then, and this is something that I speak to a lot of my private clients in therapy about. They'll say, oh, I want to find time to do this, or I want to find time to do that. I don't know how long my new hobby is going to take, how much more time or energy it's going to demand. So rather than just trying to cram it into my day, actually what I need to make is space first. I need to find some space in my day and then try and fill it with something, rather than just cramming more stuff into my day. So I think that idea of just finding an hour to switch off a day, I think is really nice. Uh, Someone said, great webinar. Will the slides be made available online? I've just become a line manager. Do you or anyone else have any recommendations on gauging mental health? I'm conscious that there is such a thing as too much communication, so trying to get the balance. Yeah, these slides will be available, as will a recording of this, and I'll send it around to everyone that's been here today. If you sign up with your email, you'll get it. If not, I'll put my email address at the end, and you can just ask me for a copy. There is such a thing as too much communication. I think one of the best things to do when I'm not sure how to manage someone who's suffering with poor mental health is just engage them in the conversation and just say, I'm not sure how much to communicate with you to be best for your mental health. Would you let me know when you need to be in touch? Then just give them the power back. They'll feel more respected. They will have more power, and then you won't have to do as much as well. Laura says, watching trash TV helps me wind down, e.g. soaps. Also getting my exercise bike for 30 minutes every day straight after work. It's not good walking weather. Put something good on the iPad to watch while I'm on it. Only got my bike in first lockdown, absolute bargain. Well done, yeah. Well, 30 minutes every day is a great amount of exercise. Don't minimize that. That's a huge amount of work. That's brilliant. That's a lot more than most people are able to do. So well done. I'm going to carry on for a little bit and I'll come back to a few more questions. The next thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of kindness and compassion. And I wanted to try and bring something tangible to this. This is a concept I'm sure we're all aware of. We've heard people talk about, philosophers have spoken about it for years and years. I like this quote from a poet more than from any of the philosophers, actually. Caring for myself is not just self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Now, I'm keeping myself alive. I'm looking after myself. And that's what helps me to fight a good fight and do the things that I need to do. Now, we know kindness to others helps us. What it does is it helps us chemically, physically, and emotionally. It boosts the levels of serotonin and endorphins in our body, which makes us feel satisfied. And that's why I really like that picture of the guy giving himself a hug. Makes us satisfied, and it reduces our anxiety. The harder thing to do is kindness to ourselves. We have built a little bit of a pattern and a little bit of a society where we're hard on ourselves, because people that are harder on themselves will buy more things to make themselves feel better. That sounds incredibly cynical. I've tried to take every ounce of cynicism out of that as possible, but that's the kind of meaning behind it. So kindness to ourselves, I don't just mean getting yourself things. I mean being honest with yourself. Acknowledging the things that you find difficult is kindness, because you're protecting yourself then. And then telling yourself what you need, reminding yourself, and then treating yourself with kindness. Yes, I want a bath. That helps me relax. Yes, I like to read a book. Can I combine the two? Can I think really carefully about how to get the most out of my kindness for myself? What this is not just that happiness and kindness that we give ourselves, but it's an antidote to fear, because it puts us back in charge. The more in touch I am with my negative feelings and the positives that I want to come out of it, the more in control I am and the more powerful I feel, and therefore my anxiety decreases. Give yourself permission to really enjoy the things that you enjoy. And, that's an easier said thing than done, of course. A couple of points here from the audience. Someone said to Derek, and everyone living alone, I've joined a local camera club who do weekly online meetings and have competitions. That's a great idea. I've never even thought of that. Yeah, you can join a camera club and then you'll get together and share your photos you've taken that week. That sounds great. It takes one evening of escapism from life a week, and it gives some no pressure topics to go photograph with a purpose. Gets you outside if you want to be outside as well, I'm sure. That's a beautiful idea. I might look into that one myself, Peter. Thank you. Sue says, perhaps easier said than done, but definitely try to be kind to yourself. We're all going through this together. We are all going through this together, absolutely. We're all going to have our different reactions. And I will feel worse for people that are having a worse time than me. And I will feel like I'm comparing myself to other people all the time. That's fine. That's totally natural. But at the end of the day, when I'm home and I'm trying to look after myself, I have to be honest. Derek says, thanks, I do all of that, but I just don't relax on my own. I wasn't like this before. It can be exhausting. So you've started right there, the proper kindness to yourself. Can you notice you said you've acknowledged what's difficult. Relaxing on your own is difficult. So try a few different ways of relaxing on your own. Explore it a little bit. Be interested in it. And then if you really can't relax on your own, find other people to relax with. There is no shame in being better at being around other people than being alone. It's totally natural human feelings. Don't worry about it. I've asked for a camera for Christmas. We'll be looking for a camera club now. Yeah, I think everyone's going to be. Those camera clubs are going to be a bit oversubscribed. Emma says, maybe try reading a book, time to yourself, but your mind is focused. That's a good piece of advice. Yeah, absolutely. I like reading trashy romance books. They make me laugh, and it's relaxing without realizing. Brilliant. Yeah, what I quite like to do with reading is find a little bit of a genre and then get a couple of books in that genre. It gives me a feeling like I'm not just reading for the sake of it, but I'm exploring a world or I'm exploring an idea, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. I think that's quite useful. And look out for the coping mechanisms. I've underlined alcohol and gambling because there's been recent reports about how much these have increased. We're going into the Christmas period, whether you celebrate it or not. It is a time that people tend to be a little more hedonistic. There's less things to do outside. There's more fun to be had inside with some of these things. And I'm not saying don't do these things at all, but just take care. Because if I'm doing these to a certain level, it's okay. But it's quite a fine line where it pushes over into this thing that I'm doing to enjoy myself or to escape the world is making everything more difficult. The best example of that, of course, is alcohol. We all know the dangers of it, and yet we all know the fun of it as well. And we have a little bit of a laugh playing with that line sometimes, pushing it a little bit, maybe just one more. But think about what that one more is doing to you the next day. That's all I'm going to say about this around this period. We need our resilience at the moment, and all of these will complete our resilience. So Peter says, I liked a book this year called What I Know. Oh, gosh. What I Know for Sure from Oprah Winfrey, rich in wisdom and acceptance of ourselves. Brilliant. Yeah, self-acceptance is important at a time like this when we're faced with ourselves more than anything. So, healthy body, healthy mind. We know that. We've been taught that since we were a kid. What are you eating? Avoid carb-heavy snacks and sugar-heavy stuff, as I said earlier on. They feed stress. When are you eating? 5 p.m. is a good time for a snack. We should be having breakfast first thing in the morning, lunch at a regular time during the day, put it in your diary, and then a snack at 5 p.m. is actually helping us a little bit at the moment. Remember, it's winter. We're going to be after more calories. We're going to be looking for more energy. That's totally natural. But something's healthy at 5 o'clock really bridges that gap for a lot. Are you hydrated right now? I'm not. That's always my excuse to have a good drink. Who hasn't had much water today? I put this slide in a presentation that I was doing over the last few weeks, and it was at different times during the day, and I had a little bit of fun checking in the audience who hasn't had a glass of water yet. It's 4:15 in the afternoon. Let me know in chat if you haven't had a glass of water yet today. Be honest. You can send it to me privately, but I'd really like to know. Okay. Well, thank you for being honest and for doing it in front of everyone. Wow. So those 4 people that have not had a glass of water today, your next task is to try and drink a glass of water every day for the next week. Will you try that for us? At least 2 litres of water so far. Some people are having brilliant 1 pint of water and lots of coffee. Coffee's fine as long as we're having water as well. Just pay attention to having coffee late in the day. It can ruin your sleep. Thank you to all of you being honest and saying, yes, I will try. Good. Just our brain and our body. I'm not going to tell you how important water is. That's going to be a waste of time. We all know how important it is. Cool. Have you moved enough today? Okay, so all of those that were able to be honest about water, who here has done any exercise or movement today? Who here has done more than 5 minutes of boogieing around or something? Walked 3 kilometers at lunch, cycled to work and back. You guys are putting us all to shame. 2 short walks, people walk at lunchtime, run to the door for the post, walk to the dogs. Oh, brilliant, guys. 1 minute of HIIT, 1 minute of high intensity training. Well done. That's pretty high intensity. No, been in calls most of the day. So those of you that are saying no, you weren't able to, that's because other people came first, right? Other people's calls, other people's business came first. The work that I do came first, fine. When are you going to put yourself first? Is it today? Maybe you're not. Maybe you're going to give yourself Friday night off. That's also fine. But you're going to find time on the weekend just to do half an hour of exercise. I think that's really important. Have you been outside? Lots of people saying they've been out for walks at lunch. Brilliant. It's great just to spend a few minutes outside. And do this every now and then. And you can spend time doing it along with me if you like. It's always my shoulders that end up really tight at this time of the week. Check your body now. Move around a little bit. Is anything bothering you? Is there anything that you need to pay attention to? A lot of times it's my tummy. It either feels too full or hungry. I always swing between the two. I'm never finding someone says my legs, yeah. How do you motivate yourself to do exercise in this dark, cold weather? Dawn, do it during the day. Do it when it's not dark. Have a little walk at lunchtime. Schedule it in your diary. Even someone's saying here, 1 hour a day minimum, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes. Just getting yourself out of the house. Even if you just do laps around your own garden, I don't care. Get some of that light outside. It's really useful. Or a short walk before work. You dog walkers get this for free, but that's a really good way of starting the day. Cool. Now, to end the day, we're then going to do some quiet time. I know I recognize a few of your faces and voices and faces and names, so you've probably seen these well-being slides before, but like I said, they haven't changed because the advice remains the same. 10 to 20 minutes each day. Just switch off. Close your laptops, turn off your phones, 5 or 10 minutes by the window, 10 to 20 minutes laying down on the sofa, whatever it is, just switch off for a little bit. Let your brain consolidate all the stuff it's done throughout the day. Let it think, let it breathe, let it take in the oxygen, take in the surroundings and the room, and I think that's really useful. Someone said privately here, utilize flexible working to allow this if it's an option, of course. Absolutely. If you are feeling anxious, if you're feeling those signs of anxiety and worry hitting you, try this breathing exercise a few times during the day. It's a really good way of putting us back in control of our body, putting us back in that power. Remember, so many of us are feeling the negative psychological effects of the pandemic because our power has been taken away. I can't just get in my car and go to the bar that I want to go to or go to the restaurant with my family. I can't even just go round to my parents' house and spend some time with the people I love the most. That can start to get to me. So if I breathe, if I count my breathing, I get more realistic. I get back in the moment. I get to realize what it is I actually should be paying my attention and time on. And then, of course, sleep. The beautiful repairing restoration of sleep that we really, really need. I'm not going to go over every single one of these, but the first two, if you're not doing them already now, start. Those of you that did not have any water yet today, stay well hydrated. Big glass of water throughout the day, something like this. I'm cheating even. This is grapefruit. Grapefruit squash, my favourite. If anyone's ever looking for Christmas presents for me, I love grapefruit squash. Eat breakfast as soon as you get up in the morning. Something small, just something to get the body going. Try and stay away from caffeine later in the day. Stay away from screens an hour before bed. If you are going to do this switching off, try and do it around bedtime. And number 7, that breathing exercise I showed you, even if you're not finding things anxious, just practicing breathing throughout the day, which is what exercise usually gives us, helps us to breathe better at night. If we breathe better at night, we sleep better. Much, much easier. Also, if we are exercising and we breathe better, we lose more weight and build more muscle. Our body runs on oxygen, it runs on water. Make sure you're getting enough of it. Someone said here privately, what's in your mind when falling asleep? What's your habit to quickly fall asleep? I don't really have a habit. I have a routine. I have some things that I do that help me prepare for the fact that I'm going to sleep. A couple of them, I have a lovely collection of mobile phones, is bringing them to another room and putting them on charge. That tells me I'm done communicating with other people for the day. It's time for me to be alone. Invariably, I'll then go and have a shower. I quite like to have a shower before bed. It feels nice. Just a good thing that I do. It's probably, not the healthiest thing sometimes, but sometimes a cold shower as well before bed is really helpful for me. These are all very personal, unique responses I've found. I'm not recommending them to everyone or anyone. And then a few stretches, just a few little stretches to move my body about a little bit, because then when I'm laying in bed, I feel my body feels more comfortable because I've just stretched it out a bit more. Things that keep me up usually are body things, so lots of my preparation is to do with my body, but to other people it'll be your mind, like you said there. So maybe trying some gratitude, maybe writing down a list of to-do things for the next day can be really helpful. Sue says, trouble is if I lie down I'll be likely to fall asleep for too long and then not get my work hours in. Well look, If you're falling asleep and you're sleeping through work, that's a good sign that you just need a bit more sleep and maybe you need a couple of days off. Sometimes don't feel worried about taking a day's leave just to sleep. Our body and our brain needs to repair. Our contracts for where we work don't understand that sometimes. They are regimented and always the same. And then try and do these kind of check-ins. And this is a great time to be doing this Friday afternoon, because this is going to show us exactly what you all should pay attention to this weekend coming up. So close your eyes if you want, play along with this. But we've had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and most of Friday. Have you felt able to take notice, be curious of new things around you? Have you felt able to connect with other people? Have you felt able to keep learning, to be active, and to give your time, your presence, and appreciation to other people? I know I haven't been active enough this week, and I know I haven't done enough new stuff. I did a little bit of learning today, and it really piqued my interest, and I'm ready to go for the weekend. So that tells me what I need to pay attention to for the weekend, being active and keeping on learning. What is it that you're missing out on? What is it that you're not getting that you could get a little bit more out of these things? Spend the weekend trying to find that thing. So those of you that are CiC EAP customers, don't forget to go to wellonline.co.uk. You'll all have an organizational login, i.e. everyone from your company shares the same login. So if you don't know what it is, call us up or speak to your HR department. They'll be able to give it to you. And then you can get in touch with us by email at any time. I haven't put our phone number on there because you all have different phone numbers too, but let me know in the chat what company you work for if you want to know the phone number. I can give it to you. And now here we reach the most useless slide in any presentation, the Q&A slide, because as soon as we get there, the slides disappear. Good. I'm going to turn off the recording now, and then we can have a bit more of an open discussion. I'm going to